the channel, guys. I just wanted to talk a little bit around the road to a million and why people can feel like it's an upward struggle, but actually, if you do it in the right way, it's still possible. And I want to talk about a couple of other financial things when we talk about path to wealth through financial growth, the magic of compounding, the rule of 72, which I've talked about on the channel a few times, but I thought it would be good to kind of document, and this concept of the snowball, which we hear a lot about, and why it's often referred to as that snowball. Okay, so the compounding effect. So money making more money. So compounding's been around for a very, very long time. So compounding is kind of that engine of wealth creation. It's kind of the process where you put some of your money in investments, whether that be property, whether that be stock investments. The idea is that those kind of earn some kind of interest on that initial principal. Okay, you can earn that interest and create that exponential growth over time. And we can see that represented by this curve where I can start off with 1,000 year one, and it can kind of balloon its way up in year 20 to say this is assuming a 10% annual growth rate. I think one of the quotes I love is one from Albert Einstein, where he says, compound interest is the eighth wonder of the world. He who understands it earns it, and who he doesn't pays it. And I think this is a really important statement for me personally, where when you start to think about your money working for you while you're not working for it, and it's working for you while you sleep. Warren Buffett always says he loves dividends because of the fact that he's able to get that passive income without any additional effort, just for owning good quality companies. So the key takeaway is the longer your money stays invested, the more powerful compounding becomes. The growth isn't linear, okay? It accelerates, with that largest gains often occurring in the later years of your investment journey. And that's exactly what happened to Warren Buffett. If you look at his wealth creation over the last 10 years far outpaces anything he earned previous to that. So we can see that compounding can really take off once it gets going. The rule of 72, I think, is quite a nice little calculator in one's head. It's kind of a financial shortcut in a way. So the rule of 72 is a simple formula, basically, to estimate how long it'll take for your investment to double at a fixed annual rate of return. So all you do is you just divide 72 by your interest rate. So if it's a 10% interest rate, it will take you 7.2 years to double your money. Another example is if you had 9%, your money would double in approximately 8 years. So it's kind of a bit of a double-edged sword, though, when you take into account inflation. So the rule also works for inflation. So if inflation is 3%, the purchasing power of your money will be cut in half in 24 years. So 72 divided by 3 equals 24. So this shows why investing is crucial to ultimately preserving your wealth, because if you don't invest your money anywhere, you just leave it in cash, it's going to erode by 3% every year due to inflation. Why do we often reference this concept of snowball? And the snowball concept is, imagine a physical snowball rolling down a hill. It will gather more snow. So in the same correlation, your wealth grows larger and picks up speed over time. You know, the idea of small, consistent contribution every year, and we'll look at the numbers in a second. The idea is to create that foundation that gives you greater returns later down the line. So you start off with that small initial investment, stay consistent with regular contributions, you're gaining momentum, earning and making money. So every time you earn interest, that's compounding. And then every additional amount of money you're putting in, that's also compounding. So again, that double compound effect leading to that exponential growth and hopefully that extra wealth creation. So that path to a million, that $3 million or £3 million as people like to refer to it, which will obviously change in the future. Reaching that first million is a tangible goal, okay? Success obviously depends on a lot of things. To amplify that, you obviously need the income to be able to save and invest in the first place, which is why some people like the covered call funds, because obviously you still need the money to come from somewhere to be able to invest in. So that obviously helps. You've obviously got to have a decent savings rate, and you've got to be able to save a decent amount of your income And it's got to be consistent. You can't just say, I'm going to do it this year, and then I'm going to do nothing next year. I'm going to do a little bit this month and do nothing next month. The idea is to stay consistent and invest in something you believe in. If you believe in dividend stocks, then invest in dividend stocks. If you believe in the S&P, then go and buy the S&P. Even if it's asset classes that are outside the stock market, even if it's investing in properties, whatever that investment is, provided you've done the research, you've done your homework, and you believe in that investment. It could even be crypto, right? So the idea is you've ultimately got to believe in it. You've done your homework. You understand the risks. You understand the reward ratios. That is the key thing, right, to getting that return on that growth. The final, obviously, big thing is it doesn't matter how much you bring in, but if your outgoings far exceed it, you obviously need to keep your expenses under control. So track your expenses, free up more money, because ultimately that compounding effect, you saving now, will have so much impact in the future. And again, I'm going to look at that now in terms of understanding the different ages and how time really matters when we talk about investing. And I also want to kind of remove a myth that if you start very late also, it means it's completely game over. That's also not the case. So again, I just wanted to kind of take some hypothetical examples here. Obviously, if you're starting early in your investing career and you've got higher returns, or you could be, how much do you actually need to save if you were to start early compared to if you were to start late? And historically, the average return for the stock market, I'm using the stock market as loosely termed, the S&P 500, has been around 10% before inflation and around about 7% after, or adjusted for inflation. So this chart kind of illustrates those monthly savings required based on your starting age and your various annual returns. And so if we kind of just focus on the S&P, if you were to just chuck your money in there and leave it for the time it takes. And what we can see is if we look at 60 up to 65, if we were to start at 25, you can see the amount that actually required is substantially less. Only $381 per month will be required to save. That even if we waited 5 years, that goes up quite substantially to 555. Again, if we were to wait 10 years, that goes up to 820, and so on and so on. As you can see, as you get closer to obviously 65, it becomes harder and harder because the amount you've got to save monthly to get to that million target goal is harder at 7%. But this is where we can flip the equation a little bit. What if we were to get slightly more aggressive on our returns and we targeted more of a 10% return? Well, as we get to start, we can actually see that we actually need less. So if we were to overlay the 7 and the 10 year now, we can actually see that as you get later in life, you actually need less amounts of money to achieve the same thing. It's just maths at the end of the day, right? But I think it's important for people to understand visually why some people might target more income or higher income generated funds. And what we're not looking at this equation is just the growth. And this is why total returns always matters, right? What you've got to look at is what is the income you're generating, what is the dividends you're potentially earning, and then what is the asset itself actually returning. So if it's a distributing asset, then you need to always look at that total return side of the coin. If it's just a pure growth asset, it doesn't give you much dividends like the S&P 500, then you also need to take that into account. Quite often people log into their brokers and they look on 10k down and 5k down, but the broker is typically only showing you the return on the capital amount, not just if you were to have accounted for your dividends in that calculation. You might find you're actually positive on a total return perspective. So again, using a site or using a spreadsheet, whatever your methods are, to be able to track that total return is so important. Otherwise, people get disheartened by that number. Obviously, the other advantage of an income asset is, provided it's a good income asset, it's just going to keep on producing income irrespective of the market volatility that's going on. It might be less, obviously, but it's still there. Whereas obviously later in your life, if you put a lot more in growth, you don't always have that time for that recovery to occur and get those returns back. But I think this illustrates that obviously the higher the return, obviously the quicker that compounding occurs that we talked about earlier. And then even if you get into the slightly higher rates of return, the amount that you need is quite small. So the key takeaway here is obviously starting early is very, very beneficial. So if you do have children or anything like that, it's important that you invest in any vehicles that you're able to invest in to support them. In the UK, we have something called the Junior ISA, which is a great investment vehicle where you can put, at the time of recording, about 9k in for each child, and then you can obviously allow that to compound in there until they're 18, and obviously they take over their normal ISAs at that age. But I'll maybe do some simulations around that as well later on. But I think it's just important for people to understand that it's never too late, no matter what age you're really at. It's just the way in which you invest, the style of investing could be different. But the key takeaway is the total returns is still very important. But if you do have a goal in mind, whatever that be, a 1 million, 500k, whatever it is that you need to live off, it's the same things around being able to be consistent, being able to put as much aside as you can early as you can, believing in the investments that you're buying, and ultimately controlling those expenses. Okay. So kind of actionable steps here to kind of accelerate this goal, as I said, is invest consistently, reinvest earnings if you can. So making regular contributions to your investment accounts, no matter how small. Critical to ensure all dividends and earnings are automatically reinvested to maximize that compounding effect. A lot of brokers are good that way. Trading 212, which I use, they have the pies feature, and you can auto reinvest any dividends as they come in. You can set a strategy where you pay in a set amount every month from your bank account. So again, it's really good. Obviously, the key is to not stretch yourself too far, though. You don't want to be in a situation where your money's all tied up, and then you need it for other things. So always make sure that you've got enough for that rainy day expense. Obviously, another way, which easier to say than do in the current climate, obviously, is to increase your income. The most direct way to save more is obviously to try and earn more. So maybe chasing promotions, developing new skills, doing side hustles, could all increase your potential to fuel those investments. This one's obviously a bit controversial for some people in terms of the managing of expenses. There are some life expenses we all want to keep, that Netflix subscription, it may be, etc. But every dollar that you don't spend is a dollar that you can ultimately save and invest. So obviously look at your budgets. There's really good allowances between, if you're a married couple, for example, you can share your ISA allowances, make sure you're both capping out those full ISA allowances every year. That's a really good way of making sure that any capital gains or any dividends that get paid out, you don't get taxed on. So obviously try and make sure that you're managing your expenses, sharing those expenses as a team to reduce your overall expense budget. Limiting lifestyle creep is always a real challenge. As you get those pay rises, you kind of get the urge to upgrade your lifestyle immediately, buy a new car, do an extension, do luxury holidays, those kinds of things, upgrade your clothes. Obviously that then takes a hit and you're back to square one in terms of the amount that you can actually save. If you can get to that discipline of as your kind of income grows, as you get older, potentially, let's say you're younger in the career and as you climb up the ladder, you get more paid more, is to obviously still have that lifestyle so you still want to live for today almost, but just try and balance that with how much you're saving. Obviously, another thing to bear in mind is any windfalls that you may get, whether that be bonuses if you're in a sales job, or potentially any inheritance that you might receive. It's always important, if your child gets money from birthday gifts and their cash gifts, then encourage people to then put them in their junior ISAs. All those types of things, whether it be lump sum, whether it be small amounts, just all these little things just add up over time, and it's just amazing how quickly the compounding effect can really take over. Obviously, building a diverse portfolio, so it's really important that you don't put all your eggs in one basket, whether it's a diverse portfolio of stocks, ETFs, bonds, even other asset classes like property, etc. Whatever you feel comfortable, whatever gets you to invest and save is always really important. And that driver is different for everybody. That's the beauty of the investing world. There's so many different asset classes out there now to go and put your money in. And so long as I said, you understand the risks, you understand the rewards of it, your financial future is in your hands. The idea is, if you start today, stay disciplined, the power of compounding will just simply take over in time, and you will get to that mark. So it's as sustainable as it seems now. It is achievable, and I've just proved that the maths doesn't lie, and it is doable. And there are many people out there doing it today. So there you go, guys. That wraps up today's video. I thought I'd just pull together some things that we've been talking around a lot on the live streams. Hopefully it was useful. Put in the comments, what is your strategy? What are the things that you're looking to do? What are the asset classes you're looking to invest in? It'd be great to understand where people's thinking are around this. I'll catch you on the next one.